the United Kingdom, a place with an important position in the history of IVF, the birthplace of the technology, the first ever test tube baby, Louise Brown, born in 1978. Dr. Simon Fischel was on the research team.
We've now moved on in IVF for well over 3 decades, and we understand more and more the risks, or in fact more importantly the lack of risks that now occur in IVF technology. But when I was first involved in this, right at the very beginning, actually even some of the most eminent scientists in the world were saying that this technology was too risky. It shouldn't be allowed. But they didn't really understand it.
At the time, IVF was controversial, seen as playing God.
There was this whole ethical dilemma. There were the religious groups, and there were other people who believed that actually IVF was immoral. So there wasn't a day that went by that we weren't criticized or pilloried for the work we were doing. But we believed in it, and we fought on, and I think we've been vindicated over the years.
35 years later, there are more IVF babies being born than ever before. In the United States, 1.5% of all births are conceived using artificial reproductive technologies. That's the highest percentage ever.
I believe somewhere around 95% of all the problems of infertility, using all the technologies available, we can now overcome. And IVF is an amazing technology because it allows us to define families that we couldn't do before in the way we were able to bring about the complex process, but in the mix of families that actually come to us to help achieve in vitro fertilization.
At Care Fertility Group in the UK, a machine called the embryoscope is raising the success rate of IVF births even more. Traditionally in IVF, the embryos are removed from the safety of the incubator once a day and analyzed under a microscope. But embryos are fragile, and removing them from the incubator exposes them to risks like changes in temperature or any toxins in the air. With the embryoscope, a tiny camera inside the incubator takes a photo every 10 minutes, creating a time-lapse video of the embryo's development and removing the need to expose it, also giving embryologists more information than they've ever had before.
So on the screen now we have one patient's eggs. Each slide has 12 slots, so this patient has filled a slide with her 12 eggs. The eggs were inseminated with the sperm, and if we start the video we'll be able to see which ones fertilise and which ones don't. You can see there the 2 nuclei, that's the sign of fertilisation, one's from the egg and one's from the sperm. And as the video progresses, the fertilised embryo will now cleave and divide into 2 cells and then continue, and the clock in the counter in the corner here is telling us how many hours have progressed and how much time has progressed since the sperm was added to the egg, and that's the critical time points. All of those images compiled together to show us a video is giving us dramatically more information than we've ever had before. And very occasionally we see cells go backwards, cells merge, so what has been a 4-cell embryo later is a 3-cell embryo, and that's not good news. So we can say, well, let's avoid that one for transfer, so let's focus on the rest of the embryos. So that's really why we're gathering so much data and experience.
But using this whole process, it really changes the way the embryologists work in the lab, and I think it is changing the face of how we do IVF, in fact.
We love this technology. We feel now we've got a tool that's easy to use, it's based on our own data, so we believe it, we trust it, and it's giving our patients the very best chance that they may not have had in the past.
I'll do this back one.
One such case was the Potter family. Told it would be impossible for them to conceive on their own, IVF was their only option. As an extreme case, they were referred to Care in 2011, just in time for the first testing of the embryoscope.
This was the first opportunity we'd had once we'd developed this particular technology of trying to apply it to a case. And we used this case where there were several embryos and some difficult decisions to make, because up until this time the embryologists had their own intuitive choice of embryos from their own experience. Now all of a sudden you're trying to hand it over to technology, allow the technology to choose for me what I would normally think would be a better embryo. And this was a really revealing moment for us when we allowed the technology to choose the embryo for the embryologist to do the transfer. And of course this is what happened in the Potter's case.
We had a day 3 transfer, so they were in the lab in the embryoscope for 3 days, and then I went back in and they put them back in my womb, and then I had to wait for 2 weeks, the 2-week wait, the dreaded 2-week wait, crawling the walls for 2 weeks. You're moving forward all the time. That's once you're gaining the momentum, you concentrate on the end game. And you don't tend to focus on anything outside of that. It's just, okay, what's the next bit? What's the next bit? And your positivity kind of, or mine did anyway, your positivity spiralled. Failure wasn't an option for us. As far as my head was concerned, it was going to work.
It did work. Gemma and Simon got the phone call saying they were pregnant.
I remember just smiling. I remember describing on our wedding day that I had a really sore face because I've been smiling all day, and it was just more of that. Yeah. Spin it. Round and round and round.
On March 25th, 2012, Isabella Potter was the first baby born with the benefit of the embryoscope at CARE. The first, but certainly not the last. Since Bella, there have been more than 1,000 pregnancies using the embryoscope at CARE clinics across the UK and Ireland. According to CARE, the embryoscope has raised the percentage of live births by more than 50% in the United Kingdom.
To me, a result is when a couple walk into a clinic, what is their chance of a live birth? It ranges from 10% to 50%, depending on the condition and the expertise of the clinic. What we're able to do is to elevate that chance of a live birth by maybe 15 or 20 percentage points.
Much of IVF is about trying to beat the odds, and as technology progresses, so do the chances for families around the world.